So this is a review that's been recommended to be done by Matt Tomelty, a review of the archival material that I have about the small intentional Franciscan community movement that occurred after Second Vatican Council, that occurred in the OFM order. The beginning of it is through the highest levels of the order at that time. The Minister General was Constantine Kozer. They encouraged a connection with Taizé in the effort toward renewal. The idea was to try to find ways of renewal that would be positive for the life of the order. And they looked at Taizé for leadership, because at that moment Taizé was attracting young people from all over Europe, coming there for times of prayer. They were a tremendous witness and very much alive. So the friars joined Taizé. Taizé asked if they could have a group of friars living with him, and they did. I think 4 friars initially, and this is around 1965 or so. In 1966, in the history for the United States, the beginning is 1966, when several Taizé brothers came to Chicago, and 2 or 3 friars moved in with him in community, and they were in community together for about 5 years. Friars from the U.S. who were part of that, among them was Bob Paul and Paul LaChance. In 1969, the Assumption Province began a small inserted community, and to initiate it, 3 friars were identified to live with the Taizé community. And they were there for a month, and during that time they met a family, the Dalberding family, who were associated with the Catholic worker movement. And they connected in a very positive way, and the gospel family was formed. The friars moved above the Dalberding family in an apartment building, and they began having meals together, shared prayer, and other people from the community began to visit. Other inserted communities that occurred around the country at that time, because it was talked about from the highest levels of the order as well as on the highest levels of the different provinces. So to give you an example, by 1969 there were small inserted communities in Las Vegas, Chicago, Cincinnati, Dittmer, Missouri, Longueuil, Quebec, La Chute, Quebec. And then over the ensuing years of the 1970s, more and more were formed. There was in 1971 a Franciscan gathering in Wheaton, Illinois, that was organized by the Franciscan Federation. Over 200 people came, and among them was Alan McCoy, Dorothy Day, and Paul LaChance. In 1972, Louis Vitale did his dissertation for a doctorate in sociology from the University of California, LA, UCLA, and his one chapter was on the gospel family in Chicago. In 1971, when the Taizé Chicago community disbanded, the remaining friars formed what was called Beacon Street, and many will say that was one of the most dramatic example of an inserted Franciscan community engaging in so many different levels. And so Beacon Street was a real highlight. Many people had passed through Beacon Street, were inspired to take the values elsewhere. In 1973, we have a document of an evaluation of the Beacon Street community. In 1974, the Franciscan Federation did a survey. David Flood, Sergius Wroblewski, and others were part of that survey, and that was a inventory of all the small communities for men and women, Franciscan men and women in the United States. In 1974, an Irish friar, Peter Shanahan, did his master's thesis on 3 Franciscan communes in Chicago. Among them were the Hyde Park Fraternity down by CTU, the Gospel Family, and Beacon Street. In 1978, a major survey of small intentional Franciscan fraternities in Western Europe and North America was done, conducted by Alain Richard of the French province and Paul LaChance of the Quebec province. It culminated with an international friar meeting that included Tadej Matura, Herman Chaluk, and others. In 1988, there was a survey of the small intentional Franciscan communities of men and women in Chicago area. It's called Foolishly Franciscan. And Paul LaChance, myself, and Joe Zimmerman from the Sacred Heart province worked on that. In 1991, there was another survey focusing on the small intentional Franciscan fraternities in North America, Canada, and the United States, and myself and Alain Richard worked on that. And we never did a final report on that, and we hope to get a final report done on that now at this time. But over 100 people responded to the survey from all over the country and from Canada. In 1993, we have an article from Gerald Moore's presentation. He's an Irish friar who's a missionary to Central America. At the time, it was the end of our Guatemala year, and Gerald Moore gave us a presentation over 3 days on the small inserted communities in Central America. From 1996 until 2006, there were annual meetings in Europe of small intentional Franciscan fraternities, hosted mostly by Marcus Hines of the Saxony, Germany province. In 1999 was the largest gathering. They had 27 friars attending, including the sitting Minister General Giacomo Bini. And Marcus does say that at that time he told us that there was a friar in Colombia who's documenting the small intentional fraternities internationally. In 2004, Paul Lachance attended one of our specialized ministry meetings, and I was sent to go to the European meeting on small intentional communities in Frankfurt, Germany in 2004. In 2007, Tadej Matura attended our specialized ministry meeting at San Luis Rey, and he talked about his history with the small intentional communities. In 2009, Matt Tumulty and myself, we made an appeal to form a small inserted fraternity in South Tucson, and we were joined by Jerry Zawada, and we began in 2010, and it continued until 2014. Giacomo Bini served as Minister General from 1997 until 2003. In 2004, Giacomo and other friars began a new community outside of Rome, using a wing of the provincial house as a home base. And they were living simply, spending time as itinerants, doing part-time work, and spending a lot of time without money and without cars, being present to people around them. It was such a positive experience that led to regular meetings every 2 or so years of friars who were participating with them and others who were interested. So from 2006 to 2012, there were 4 or 5 meetings that occurred in different places in Europe. And it was a way to explore a project of renewal in the order. In 2013, just a note, Pope Francis was elected. And in 2014, a decision is made to write a document about this new community to go to the worldwide OFM order, and it was called Iti Natianti. It is translated into 8 languages. And another new community was formed in Turkey. In 2014, Giacomo Bini dies after writing a 2-page conclusion for Iti Natianti. In 2015, Michael Perry attended the first ever national OFM gathering of lay brothers at San Juan Bautista. 70 brothers attend from all 7 U.S. provinces, Australia, Singapore, and South Korea. The Minister General encouraged us to read Iti Natianti. And then in April 2017, Matt Tumulty, John Gutierrez, and myself, we organized a gathering in Chicago of 11 friars from 5 U.S. provinces to discuss Iti Natianti and explore possibilities of forming new communities in the U.S. 2 new communities are in serious discernment, and that's why we're here right now at Santa Barbara Mission to present to the definitorium our proposal for a new community along the border of Arizona and Mexico on the U.S. side. The other proposed new community that's being talked about it would be an inner-city new community in Detroit, Michigan. And there's other discussions going on about other possibilities. So that concludes my presentation and the history, and I have most of the documentation I have as a little unofficial archives that Sam has taken some pictures of before this interview. So thank you for your time and attention. If you have any questions, let me know.